Hey guys, I hope you all are doing good. So today's podcast is about construction project management. This video is totally on demand because you have been asking me to conduct an interview or a podcast with someone who is more experienced into construction project management field. And here I am with Yosef Domnitz. He is a construction project manager. He is a civil engineer and he has his own construction project management company in Toronto. So this video is nothing but sheer knowledge. I hope you watch this video till the end. This video is divided into two parts. Each part is around 30 to 33 minutes. So yeah, stay tuned for the second part and try watching this video. This video will be a game changer for you. So without any delays, let's get started with the video. So hello everyone. So the day is here. Finally, all of you were waiting for this specific video, and this video is based on your demand, and I promised you guys that I will get someone who has a lot of experience in construction project management, but I have someone even better. And so I'm really honored. First, I would like to say this, that you took some time out for us, and your thoughts and your knowledge will help, I think so, thousands, not millions, but at least thousands of people out there, and the fresh students like me who are willing to join construction project management. So sir, welcome, and I will pass the mic to you. You can give us a basic introduction about yourself, sir.
Thank you very much. You're very kind. And I always say, if you can help one person's life, it makes such a big difference. It doesn't have to be the thousands or the millions. Just one or two people, you can change the world. Yeah, so basically my name is Yosef Domnitz, and I am the principal at EPC Solutions, which is a project management company based in Toronto. My background has been, I trained many years ago as a robotics engineer in the UK, and then I worked for global organizations in the UK, and then came to Canada and emigrated to Canada. So I know a lot of people that listen to these podcasts, they're interested in moving countries, which is great. You know, that's another podcast for another time. But so I spent 15 years with global corporation. I'm working a lot in the power industry, so power distribution and construction, so design, construction, and procurement projects, EPC projects, and then moved to Canada with my organization. And then after working for them for 5 years, I decided to come up to break away and open my own company. And I've been doing that for now 5.5 years. So, and it's been, it's a journey like everything else is. But it's very exciting, very exciting. I've been fortunate to work on a lot of renewable projects, a lot of conventional power projects. I'm now working in the industrial area and also the residential. So quite a large, span of projects. And as I said, I started off as an engineer. My basis was an engineer, and then I became a project engineer, and then slowly worked my way up to become project manager and then owner of a company.
Wow, sir, that's that's intense. Like for the like freshers like me, like I have like 4 years of experience, but I think so, like, in our industry, like 4 or 5 years of experience means nothing actually. But yeah, that's immense amount of knowledge. And guys, if you haven't seen his LinkedIn profile, I would say, like, go check his profile out, go follow him. He shares a lot of insightful messages and a lot of insightful posts on LinkedIn. He's a great speaker also, as you have seen. So we would like to start like with our questions now. So my first question is, like, I'm not very familiar with construction project management. I just know the overview of it, like how things goes in project management and construction project management. Can you enlighten us about the construction project management, sir?
Yeah, definitely. So just going back to saying about 4 years experience, I remember when I first started out on my journey, I went over to somebody's desk and say, what can I do? How can I help you? I was a graduate. I went to I started up a company, and that's how it really started. I got the best opportunities by going over to managers they're really hard to work. They need some time. And I was like, right, give me something to do. I'm not just, don't just want to sit at a desk and just twiddle my thumbs. I want to, give me something. And that's how it started. I remember being criticized at one point by some of the older guys that I was doing too much. And I was going back over old files, and I was digging out things that needed to be closed out. And that's really, it's to be proactive and to ask people, especially in corporate environment, asking people if they can help them and what can you do. You're gonna get the best amount of experience possible.
Right.
So just going back to the question. Just remember the question again.
Like, how would you describe construction project management? What it is on ground, what it is like?
So there's all, again, it goes back to what I was just talking about. There's different levels of project management. So again, it depends on how proactive you're going to be. A project manager's job really is, in the textbook, is really to be there and oversight and to deal with fires as they come up, problems run around. But generally what happens is you end up doing a lot of the work yourself. So it's, you have to really try and prioritize. Some of the key things of project management is organization. So you're going to see, so it depends in which industry you're working in and at what stage you become involved in a project. So sometimes if you're fortunate enough, you get involved with the tendering stage. So basically you get involved with right at the beginning, draft drawings, very, very high level concepts, high level budgets, all those kind of things. And then once you win the project, so this is normally what happens when you go out to tender, you're trying to go and win a project. So you get involved with the very high level design, you win the project. And then what you do is you get involved with setting the project up and going all the way through right to the finish. A lot of times in industry, what happens is you normally get the sales team does the sales pitch. You may have a little input. A lot of the times you don't. And then what happens is they drop the project on your desk. So what they do is they have a file that they've worked on over a year and a half, and they basically drop it on your desk and they're like, right, you've got to deliver. And then what you've got to do is you've got to basically take all that information, digest all that information, work out exactly, how you need to deliver, how is it sold, are there any changes, and then deliver the project. And it's very difficult because normally what happens is the sales team are very desperate to sell the project, so they're going to throw everything they can into that project to make it look really good. And then you've got to work out a way, because you've got a budget that you've got to keep to try and deliver that project. So as a project manager's job, you're going to oversee the design. A lot of the times when I was involved in the industry, I was overseeing everything. So what I do is I'd oversee the design, I'd oversee the tendering. So what happens is you finalize the design. Then what you do is you go out and get quotations, have negotiations with vendors, work out who's going to come and do the job. And then what you do is you'd oversee the project. And then by overseeing the project, so during the tendering stage, you're going to oversee contracts, you're going to oversee budgets, you're going to do negotiations. And then when it comes to the construction side of things, you're going to oversee the whole construction. So you're looking at, from a very, very high level, you're looking at the schedule, you're looking at budgets, you're looking at safety on site, you're looking at management of resources, management of material. You're going to go to site and do site visits. You've got to deal with any HR issues that happen at site, which generally kind of come up on projects. So any kind of, unions you have to deal with as well. Those kind of, this is in a nutshell, very, very high level of a project manager. The exciting thing about a project manager is that you get to see everything. Generally, you get to see a whole host of every single thing that goes on the project. You'll get to see. There are some projects that I've worked on where you get a project director, and there could be 5 or 6 project managers. But even then, you get really good aspect of the project, from a very high level. So really, the way I put it up, a project manager's job is the person that is the gatekeeper to everything that happens on a project.
Yeah, basically, like, you are the person who get things done on ground, probably.
Well, you've got to, what you've got to do is you've got to manage. The idea is that you don't really want to get involved with doing the work yourself, in the sense of you're not going to go out and start pouring concrete yourself, which I have done in the past.
Yeah.
But what you want to do is it depends, and that's what I'm saying. It depends on the size of the project. Some projects too big. If you're managing 500 people, you're not going to be doing any of the work. If you're managing a small project, you may get to go and do a little bits on site. So it just depends what, and I said, what industry, what kind of projects you're working on, whether you get to do some of the work yourself or whether you normally hand it off to other people, and then you're managing the project. People don't realize that managing a project and managing a project well, to make sure that you keep within the quality, the cost, and the schedule, is a full-time job in itself. So you don't really get much time to do anything else because you're so, you have to be on the ball as such to make sure that all these things are coming together and that there's, and the project's been delivered well. So you're like the liaison between everybody. You're basically pushing, all the information between different bodies, between different people, to make sure that the work gets done.
Wow, like sounds very intense. So my next question would be on basis of this only. Like it is a highly responsible job. Like even if someone messes up, you have to probably manage your schedules. You have to manage the project costing, estimates, everything that goes on site. As you come from a civil background, and like a lot of our viewers are from civil and architecture background, why did you choose this particular sector to go forward with, like construction project management? Why not like construction itself?
So I don't think most people I never really had a vision as such. When I left school, I chose engineering, and I did engineering because I enjoyed making stuff. I never thought that I'd be a project manager. I didn't think I'd open my own business. It wasn't an aspiration I had straight out of school. For me, it kind of just happened as I went through the steps, and as I became more mature, with a lot more experience, and met people that coached me and eventually opened my own company. It wasn't something I thought, I always wanted, I didn't even think at one time when I first started, I thought I'd be apprenticeship and I'm just going to, do an apprenticeship and then I'll just work as a technician. And then as I started to go through my education, I realized, I can get a degree. If I spend a bit more time in education, I can get a degree and then I can go into, I can become more of a manager. And I went, as I started off at the beginning, I started off in the railway. So I was doing maintenance in the railway. I started off as a maintenance manager in the railway. I actually designed an engineer, signals engineer on the design side. And then I started to see projects and I was like, I like to get involved. I never saw myself at a desk doing design all day. At the time, I didn't really see myself as a full manager yet either. But what I did is I realized that, that I wanted to try and aim for more. Yeah. So then I started to manage. I got the first, one of the section managers on the railway, a manager of a certain area of the railway, went off on vacation for 2 months, and I got the opportunity to start managing people. And it was difficult. I was young. I was managing people with a lot of experience. They had me wrapped around a little finger, and it taught me a lot. But then I realized that it's that's what I wanted to do. And so I then moved over to, so there's either the engineering route, which you stay engineer and then you become an engineer manager and you kind of go through that route and you become like a senior manager and maybe go into, like a department manager, operations manager. Or there's the other side where you get to become a project manager and then you're managing people straight away. You're managing, sometimes these projects that you're delivering, over $100 million in value is larger than some companies. So you're already managing a full-blown company. So that was my route. I became a project engineer, which is a project engineer is managing the engineering and also managing the project as a junior project manager, and then slowly moved up, became a project manager, became a senior project manager. And I was always, every time I moved positions, I moved up. I was moving up the ladder. So I didn't just move to the same position. I also managed to move to the next level. And, I really enjoy it. I'm dyslexic by nature, which gives me a very good vision of projects. I always see a project in like a 4D. I always say I can see the whole project. And I realized that was my, it took me a long time to appreciate that vision because I thought everybody sees it that way, but they don't. And I realized that as a coordinator and a project manager, I become very strong. A lot of my projects are very successful. And so I took on that role, and the more I've grown, and the more I've become mature, and the more I've become confident, I realized that there's a lacking as a project manager. There's a lot of skills that are lacking, that people come into project management that they don't realize that they need these skills. And to me, it was always exciting because you can get to see the whole project. Yes, it's very stressful, but at the same time, you get to see the project from start to finish. Whereas an engineer, you don't always get to see that. What you do is you do engineering. You may only do engineering as part of the project. You only get to see part of the project, and then you move on to something else. Whereas the project manager, you go right from the start to the finish. And, you can look back at the end of the project and go, wow, we created this. This is something that's going to be here for a long time.
Yeah.
And you can enjoy that. So that's, to me, to become a project manager, that was my journey.
Wow.
You have to really want to do it. It's
Yes.
not something, it's not something that you can fall into, and you have to really have a passion, to do that kind of work.
It is like a long-term commitment. Like, you can't be just like, you have designed certain portion and you can just dust it off from your desk and like move on to the next project. Here you have to be there on that project, no matter it is taking 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Like you have, that's a process actually.
And that's a difficulty with a lot of project managers, in the sense of, like, what happens is whenever you start off on a new project, everyone's very excited. It's always good. Everyone's happy. Everyone's going. And then what happens is some projects can last, you hit difficulties. Every project, you hit some kind of a difficulty. So you have to be able to weather the storm as such. You need to be able to fight through it and realize, that you have to get through it. As a project manager's job, you have to hold the team together.
Yes.
You have to make sure that everyone's positive. And I've been dropped into some problem projects, and it's difficult. People are worn out. People are fed up. They don't want to carry on. And as a project manager, you have to hold the team and help them move and move through there. And there's some projects that are so long that the teams change. Some projects that go on 5 or 6 years, people move away. And then again, it's another challenge, because as a project manager, if the project manager hasn't moved on and you lose your team members, you have to then do the rebuilding again. So new people come on, you have to rebuild the team, you have to keep people committed. So it's a journey. And then another skill that a project manager needs to have is the finish. They call it the finisher. You always have to finish the project, because at the end of the day, if the project doesn't get finished and those snag lists, the snag list doesn't get done, you're always going to get the owner calling you up, and this has got a problem, that's got a problem. Because generally what happens is, with projects, you finish the project and then you hand it over in corporate world, you hand it over to the warranty department. So the warranty department look after all the complaints. But if you're still there as a project manager and the project hasn't finished yet, you're dealing with all these problems. So I've always said the key is to, fast. You need to get the project finished. You need to close the project, and you need to hand it over to the next department, close it out, because the longer you're at site, the more taxing it is and the more issues you have to deal with. And that's, for a project manager, you have to be able to finish the project, in the sense of you need to have the skills to say, right, you know what, the excitement is, and close the project and move on to something else.
Wow. That's like a lot of things to put in one picture. Actually, so you have described a lot of qualities that a project manager should have to be a successful project manager or a construction project manager. My next question is exactly that. Like, what do you think are few of the qualities that a person should have, and they should evaluate themselves before joining this field? Like, what qualities a person should have?
So one is, the key is organization. The second one is development in themselves. And I think, I know it's very, very different to work in a corporate world and then move off to yourself and develop yourself. And what I found is there's a lot more growth when I moved off on my own than it was when I was working in corporate. In corporate, I spent a lot of time delivering some very big projects. And what I did is I didn't spend enough time investing in myself and developing myself. And it was only afterwards, once I grew my own business, that you start realizing how important it is to invest in yourself. And I think that's, it's so key that you can, that you need to spend some amount of time, in wherever you are, and invest in yourself. And what I found over the years is that we always start off in a project with a project charter. And the project charter is like, it sets out the project and it sets the goals for the project. And what you need to do is you need to do a personal charter. You should also say, right, during this project, how am I going to develop myself? How am I going to learn? Where do I learn mistakes from? How do I improve on myself? So, you can't become stale, in the sense of you always have to keep moving. So those that you have to be willing to be able to adapt. Technology's changing now. There's a lot of different technologies. You can't be stuck in your ways. So organization, you need to be proactive. You need to have a good persona. You have to, I think you have to be approachable. Working in a team, there's a lot of skills. So anybody can go and do project management 101 training with some corporate, with some training facility, and you can learn the methods of project management. But that is just the building blocks of how you manage a project. Then there's all what they call the soft skills. And the soft skills are personal approach, how to deal with people, how to manage your time, how to manage your personal time, how to manage time between work and personal time. They all play a factor. If you're stressed, your team's not going to be doing well either. So you have to also, you have to realize that you're the captain of the ship. You're steering that ship. No matter what happens, they say the captain goes down with the ship. Wow. You have to be there all the time. So and those and for me, the soft skills are just as important as the hard skills, and the soft skills are a lot harder to learn. Yeah. You have to, it's a lot more challenging to deal. And as the workplace changes, through COVID, there's a lot of lockdowns, there's a lot of remote working. I find, one of the challenges with construction is, even though you have the textbook construction project, every project's unique. Every project's different. Every project has its own challenges. There may be similar challenges to the last project, but it's a unique challenge to this project. So you have to be very, you have to be able to keep you cool. And you also need to be able to have your fingers in all the pies. You need to be able to, understand what's going on. And let your team. What another big, a big thing with project management is, let your team go and do what they're hired to do. Definitely don't micromanage. You should have a team that you can rely on the team and let them go. You give them instructions, they go. A lot of it's coaching in management. So those are the, as a soft skills, those are the skills you need, as well as all the hard skills. The hard skills are like, budget management, schedule management, people management, as I said before. So there's, I said the soft skills are just as important as the hard skills.
Actually, that's well said, sir. Because I think when we are on site, it is harder to manage people than manage data, design, and softwares. It's very easy, I would say. Like, designing data.
Nobody's answering you back.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, max to max software will give me just an error. Here, if person gives me an error, I am in a big loss. But yeah, that's true. Like, we have to think, like, how to manage people, how to keep them happy as well. Like, even if we are going through stress, we can't let it get to them, like to our teams. So yeah, that's actually well said. And
also, I also found that with especially in construction, I mean, there's a lot of similarities to other industries. There's a lot going on in people's personal lives as well. I think more so, I think every year it gets more and more stressful, and there's other things that are happening. People have, like kids in school, kids out of school, kids not well. So you have to be able to manage. And that, again, that's another thing, flexibility. You have to have that flexibility as well to be able to. And I remember when I first started, there was this thing called open door policy where people could come in and speak to you. I think sometimes, a majority of the times, I think you need to be more proactive. People generally won't come in on their own. So you need to be able to see where the problems are happening, see where the friction is, and go out and do investigation. Don't just wait for people to come in. I think, I've learned from some of the world-class project managers, they go out and they speak to people. I've seen people go out to the site, speak to people. And as an engineer, you want to, as you're saying, there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast that are engineers. You want to learn, get your project manager to take you out to site. You go to site, the more you go to site, the more you're going to learn. I've always been a massive advocate of this. And again, I got criticized many times for taking engineers away from the desk when they should be doing engineering. And I'm like, they learn 1,000 times more on site than they would in the office. And it's to say, when a new project comes, take them out to site. This is the project, get an understanding of what the project is. And then I don't mean that they have to be on site all the time, but let them have an appreciation of what's going on. Let them see the creation.
Wow. Actually, sir, I totally agree with that, because I feel like unless and until we see the sheer scale of a project, we can't understand the value of it. We can't understand, like, what goes on the site. Like sitting on a software, it's okay. I will make everything. I will make a 30,000 square foot building and like everything is functional. But till the point I reach to the site and I see that 30,000 square feet and hundreds of people working on it, I won't realize the essence of what I'm doing. I think so I will be more interested in a project if I am on site and I see what's happening. Like,
And it's a moral boost. As you say, I can see you smiling when you see that, because you want, you don't, sometimes you need a bit of variation. And, as I said, there's a lot of times where people, where I've been criticized for taking engineers away because they see it as unproductive time. But I'm like, if you're developing somebody, it's the most productive time. There's always, no matter what software you have, there's always little problems that happen on the design of the project. And just going out to somebody, taking an engineer to say, look, we have this problem and these are the limitations. I know you've got a software and you think the software can do everything, but there's limitations. You have to understand that you still have crews of people that still have to build things, and they build things slightly different. So you can design the best building in the world. There's always problems. And having an engineer come out to site going, oh, I think you should do this or that, the other. And also another thing is that you don't, with technology these days, it's so easy to just do FaceTime.
Yeah.
So the engineer doesn't have to come out every time, but do a FaceTime, do a video call, show them, get them involved in what's happening at site, and you'll see the rewards.
Yeah, that's totally true, sir. I do agree with that. Like a lot of people don't, because they see time is equal to money. If you're going off from your desk, you're costing us money and all those things. But in a longer run, it plays a bigger role and gives you a bigger return. I totally agree to that. So next question.
So there's another point, just quickly. Yes. There's another side of that some people don't like to go to site because they get bothered at site. So there's the other side. I've always said, when you go, like, if I don't hear of something as a project manager and it's a week later, it could cost me $100,000. If I hear about it and deal with it straight away, it could cost me $10,000. And it's not like people are hiding stuff. They're just busy. They don't see things. They don't see the same view. So I know in the past that people don't want to go to site because they get hounded at site, and you've got to deal with this, you've got to deal with that, you've got to deal with the other. But I've always thrived on that, because I know that if I deal with something straight away, you look at some of the best CEOs, they deal with the problem straight away, because they know that if it festers and goes on for longer, it's going to cost more of a headache, it's going to be more challenging. So you have to, and that's part of another skill, you have to be able to go to site, and you have to be able to deal with the issue straight away.
Oh, actually, that actually makes sense, sir. Like, it is very simple thing, but it is very hard to digest for a lot of people. But I totally agree with this, sir. What do you think, like, a lot of people, like a lot of architects are willing to go for this field? Is it a good field for architects and civil engineers?
So you have to, and I've always said this. So over my time, there's people that fall into project management because it's like the next step and the next rung, but they're not really made for it. And there's some people that are made for it and that really enjoy it. And what I've found, so there's a lot of, I deal with different architects, and some architects, by default, what happens is an owner comes to an architect and says, you know what, I need you to manage the project. And I always say to owners, the architects, they only see, yes, they do the design of the building, but they only see one side of it. So that's how I created my company. You need independent project management, because you need somebody that sees things, has a global view of everything. And I'm not saying that architects can't go into project management. If it's something that they really want to do, go into project management and understand the whole aspect. But you've got to understand that an architect only sees the architecture. You need to understand the structural side of things. You need to understand the landscaping. You need to understand the M&E side of things. You need to understand HVAC. You can go through the whole host of things. So just to say I'm an architect and that an owner says to me, oh, I want you to be a project manager, it's not enough. Anybody can become, if you really have, it's like anything. If you really have a drive and you really want to become a project manager, become a project manager, but don't just become a project manager just because it's a default next step. It's like somebody falling into engineering just because they think, oh, I'm just going to be an engineer. So it's like anything. You need to have
half of the Indians are now engineers, so we just fall into it.
So that's, and it's, so the thing is that, and then you get, and it's all down to quality, and it's the same kind of thing. So yes, and project management, architecture gives you a very good basis. I think any engineering gives you a very, very good basis because you deal with one aspect. You deal with the architecture. A lot of the times the architect, it depends on how in depth you go with architecture. Do you cost the material? So sometimes people just design a building and say, right, this is the material, that's it. I'm not budging on the material. But then it could cost the owner millions and millions of dollars. So as a project manager, you have to understand that appreciation, where I have to go back to architects and say, by the way, you've chosen a brick here that's costing us $1 million. Is there any way that we can change it? Right. So if you really want to become a project manager, become a project manager. Don't just do it from a default standpoint to say, oh, I'm doing the architecture, therefore I can do project management as well. You have to understand it's a separate job. Project management is a dedicated job that it's not just, oh, because I'm doing something else, I can become a project manager. And that's what happens a lot of times, that somebody's doing the job, so they go, oh, I'll just take on project management. But until people appreciate that it's a full-time position on a project to do project management, then you won't get the full value. That's and true. You drop the ball with project management, it can cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars on a project.
Yeah, that's totally true. So does Ontario or Canada has any kind of license that a project manager should have?
No, you don't need to have a license as such. It's not like a PEng where you need to have like a professional engineering. But a lot of people, what they do is it's like anything. They look at experience, they look at, track history. I've been trained by, I've got Siemens project management. I've got the English version of it's called APMP. I have ABB project management, so I've gone through a lot of training and project management. So that comes up when somebody's looking at me, this is this is what I've done. So there isn't, you can do the PMP, which is project management, but really ultimately, again, as I said before, it's a textbook, it's like going to an architect. So you've got an architecture degree. Yeah. Does that mean you can design a good building or not? And then it becomes, your history. Where's your, show me what kind of projects you've delivered, how well have you delivered them? So that's really where it is. So yes, I think if you're starting out, definitely go and get training. But at the end of the day, it's your experience and the projects that you delivered, and that is going to really, really shine and show that, how well of a project manager you are.
So guys, this was the end of part 1, and stay tuned for part 2. The part 2 will be released in next 2 days. And guys, if you like this video, if you gained something from this video, go ahead, hit a like and subscribe to my channel. My channel actually needs your support to grow and to make and to improvise my content more. So yeah, go ahead, hit a like and subscribe, and see you soon.